And now for something slightly different. We'll be looking at the puzzle box House of the Dragon by EscapeWelt. Basically all assembled from wood. As you can see, it's covered in all kinds of bizarre little wheels and buttons and things of that sort. Apparently it's based on a story where a carpenter made a puzzle box so he could have an activity to reunite with his family. And it is kind of nice to put your heads together on this one because sometimes one of you gets stumped on a part that the other one does not. I did a little Googling when I first got this to brush up on Japanese numerals, but it didn't end up being that necessary. Right here, you've got 1 through 9 that corresponds to these, and that was really the only thing I needed to know, in case you were wondering. Now, the idea is to get inside these doors and feast your eyes upon the treasure inside, but obviously, you have to figure it out first. First of all, the main thing to understand about it is that this is a keypad. But what's the code? Ah, that's the question. Well, we start by hunting for clues. And the first thing you should find is this little button right here. If you push it up, then you can remove one of the keypad numbers. And that falls out too. Once you've got that, this bottom panel can slide off. Ah, there we go. And underneath is a list of said Japanese numbers along with the names. So once you know what word corresponds with what number, then we can start looking for clues. Like the Scooby Gang. There's a turning wheel on this side that reveals 2 things on either window. A lot of the results are flowers, but the word ichi appears. There it is. It's kind of hard to see, but it's clearly what it is. And the eyes kind of look like J's or S's. Anyway, you look at the chart on the bottom and ichi means 1. So there's our first number. And I'm told that some versions of this has a few misspellings. Mine does not, so I guess they're not all like that. Lucky. All right, the second thing we discover is that you take this button that we pried out of here, and you can use it to insert into there, revealing a little hidden window, which when pulled upon reveals 2 things. First of all, a tiny little mirror, and that's a clue. Secondly is the word go, which is number 5. So there's our second number, 1 and 5. Keeping up? The mirror is a clue because on the very bottom, that panel we removed has a bunch of words, all of which are backwards. Now you can just take a picture with your phone and flip it, but only one of these words is a number, and it is san. Oh, there it is. And it means 3. There's another number. 1, 3, and 5. We're almost there. This is a part that doesn't work so well on mine, but when you turn this, it's supposed to knock a panel loose over here. But since mine doesn't do that, I'm just going to fish it out. As you can see, it rotates out. It's blank on the top, but underneath it says, hachi, which the bottom tells us is 8. So 1, 3, 5, 8. But before we enter the code, there's one more thing we have to do, and this is another thing where you have to fiddle to find it. But where we removed the first one, there's another little loose panel in there, and it is a pain to get out. But when you do get it out and put it down carefully, then we can remove another button. Okay, so you'll want to pull the numbers out that you need, but it works like a regular keypad, which means you have to pull the other ones out first. So we need 1, 3, 5, and 8, which basically means we need to pull out all the ones that aren't those numbers, because then they'll look like push buttons. So we're gonna pull out 2, we're gonna pull out 6, and we're gonna pull out 9. Now that we've done that, we should be able to remove this. And on it is a marking with the numeral for 2, or ni. And it's got an arrow saying, give it a tug. So let's do that. And shing, out you come. And look at this, a very suspicious looking hole that we can stab into. There's also a little tab here with an arrow on it. 3 arrows, in fact. We need to make sure it is out. Now we take this, slide it inside, give it a push, and those doors pop open. Well, you gotta pry some. And what do we see inside? Why, it's a bag of beef jerky! I'm just kidding. I'm not really gonna show you what's in there. You gotta get it for yourself. Plus, I'm hungry. You know how I get. You can't solve puzzles on an empty stomach. Just ask Shaggy and Scooby. Now to put everything back the way it was. So we close the doors, we remove that key, and we put it back in the keypad, flower side facing up. Push this little thing back in. Now the tricky part. First of all, you need to make sure that the pad is set to what it's supposed to be at that got us in the first place. And since this one pulls out, you kind of have to just pick that perfect little sweet spot there. And that goes for this too, since it has a notch in it. So we do some fiddly-finagling here. You gotta wiggle, and hey, that was easy. Than last time. And now you can push the buttons back. And we return the mirror to the go window and click it back in place. This thing goes back on the bottom. Nope, I take it back. This actually has to go back in first. So with the arrow facing this way, I'm going to return it partially in, put the button back in on the top, and click. There it is. Now we can put this plate back on, making sure to leave the notch alignment, and then we return the last piece. It's hard to do this and show it at the same time. All right, flower side up. In you go. Click, and there we go. All back the way it was. So as I said, they gave us 2 of these. The missus and I have a policy on riddles, because they are something that we do enjoy. Generally, one of us will look at the solution while the other struggles trying to solve it, to see if the answer is even worth our time. And they gave us 2 puzzle boxes, so I looked up most of the answers on this one, just to make sure I could trust their puzzle. And though in general their puzzle was indeed trustworthy, there was a couple of pieces I had to force in a way that I just didn't feel comfortable doing. In fact, as I found with this one and another one, sometimes you have to apply some scary pressure to get something to move, but it'll kind of wear over time. If you take it apart, put it back together, do it over and over again, then it gets easier. But the first time, you're worried you're gonna break it. But there it is, House of the Dragon, and a beautiful little thing it is too. So I hope you found this useful, and it's lunchtime. Yeah.